Hello, we're live here from Croke Park. Myself, Shane Stapleton, Declan Bogue with me. We previewed this already in the football show on Thursday, but we said we'd go again now from Croke Park because we've seen the teams, we've seen who's in, who's out. Obviously, the game delayed a couple of weeks because of COVID cases in Tyrone, but there are a couple of players that are out for Tyrone, so maybe that will impact them today.
That's right. I'm only through the gate, the same as you, Shane, here, but we're looking here at the matchday programme, and I just was noticing that during the week, Gavin Devlin, former selector at Tyrone under Mickey Hart, he was on the Team Talk podcast as a preview night on Thursday night, and he was making suggestions about who might pick up who, and he was very keen that Rory Brennan would be given a big role, perhaps on Paddy Clifford, I think it was. But Rory Brennan's not on the matchday panel. Now, that could be an injury. We don't know. We're talking in a vacuum that we don't really know until we ask. So Rory Brennan's not on this panel. Richie Donnelly's not on the panel. And Niall Kelly, who came on as a sub in Ulster final, I know he's maybe not one of the more widely known names, Argyll Kieran player, but he did come on and he played in Ulster final, and he's not on this either. So I would say, given Rory Brennan's previous, Richie Donnelly's previous form, they have been key players. Not maybe Richie hasn't always started, but certainly Richie's always had a part to play. And certainly under this new management, they would have seen Richie Donnelly as one of the frontline players. Rory Brennan obviously is extremely fast, a brilliant man marker, and they're missing him. So I mean, this is definitely a blow here for Tyrone, because even if they were on the bench, whatever, they didn't make the team, then they would still have the huge role to play. But that would not be the case today.
Do you feel that Tyrone have adequate replacements here? I mean, looking at the team, I'm looking at the Tyrone starting 15 here, and I'm thinking pretty much every player here is a strong player that I've seen on the field several times. I'm looking at the bench with Mark Bradley, Frank Burns, Darragh Canavan, Paul Donaghy, Cathal McShane. You know, there's a lot of experience on the bench too. So can they overcome it is the question.
Yeah, they've got good replacements to come in. And Darragh Canavan obviously hurt his ankle badly against Kerry down in the league game in Killarney. And so he's back in, and he's had that probably now a number of weeks. He's always been told that he's not far away. Now we get to see, this extra fortnight will have been an unbelievable boon to the like of Cathal McShane, to Darragh Canavan. You can't replace that kind of high intensity training that they're going to be doing. And Liam Rafferty hasn't really featured much on the bench this year, but Liam Rafferty, even 2 years ago in the Ulster semi-final, was playing for Tyrone under Hart. He had a happy knack of getting forward and kicking points, even from corner back. He's a sort of I know in Galway, they won a minor championship with Liam playing as a wing forward. So he's a very, very attack-minded defender. It was a bit of a throwback to maybe the Ryan McManaman type player. So he's on the bench. Ronan O'Neill's on the bench, a wee bit of experience to come in there too. Hugh Pat McGarry's a doughty, dependable defender. Ben McDonnell, he came on the last day. Paul Donaghy is the player from Dungannon, who was highest scorer in the domestic championship, who scored 10 points in his debut, was it against Donegal, I think, in the league. So, I mean, look, they have talent. Frank Burns is a very, very experienced operator. Mark Bradley has been... he has been here before, and caused Kerry problems in Croke Park before. I still see that as a very, very strong subs bench.
What I'd love to ask you about then is what you mentioned. Gavin Devlin, he talked to that Team Talk Mag podcast earlier this week, and he was talking about exposing Kerry for what they are. And he goes, the reason that why Kerry come out and play in the middle of the field with 15 men behind the ball is because they don't trust the men at the back, and they're right not to trust them. We have to go and target that. I mean, obviously he was involved in Tyrone for a number of years there. And, that All-Ireland semi-final a couple of years ago, probably the game that sealed the All-Star for Cathal McShane. Would you concur with what he's saying there?
Yeah, I mean, and I know we're looking at this team, but I'm kind of thinking, honestly, I kind of see another wee bit of a shuffle here yet. I don't know if this is necessarily going to be the team that starts. I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever to see Cathal McShane laying out from the start on Jason Foley. And given the time that he gave Jason Foley a couple of years ago, with the quick ball being put in, at least he's going to get a half out of it. But it wouldn't surprise me to see him start. And I think that if McShane suddenly just takes his place and he's trotting in and Jason Foley, that is definitely going to spook him. And also, like, if you look back at that time, that 2019 game, Tom Sullivan at the time was marking Peter Hart. And if you don't mind me saying, Peter Hart has come up against very physical markers who have understood that they will get change out of Peter Hart if they continue to have this high physical presence. And I'm talking about John Small in particular. But Tom Sullivan didn't. There wasn't any real attention put onto him. Anytime you looked down at the field, Tom Sullivan's two hands were shoving Peter Hart in the chest, just backing him up, not letting him get ahead. Now, Peter's in a different role. He's wing back, so that won't necessarily be an issue for him. Does he go then and mark Stephen O'Brien and Dermot O'Connor? Well, look, we're going to see it as it all develops. But Tyrone just have to do a certain number of things differently than they did against Tyrone or against Kerry in that semi-final. One thing about Gavin's comments is he was talking about all the different matchups that you put, that Hampshire McNamee and Paddy Clifford. You put maybe Conor Meyler back on Sean O'Shea. No, sorry, he was recommending Rory Brennan that goes on Paddy Clifford. So that's not going to happen. Then you got Hampshire and McNamee, and take your pick between Geaney and Clifford. Either for me, he says Peter Hart.
Like, I would have thought you
well,
had to be very
said
specific.
to me either for me. Now, sometimes these chat nights are in a relaxed setting, and maybe lads, they're willing to speak their mind, and maybe they don't know that a lot of these comments can be picked up by newspapers. This is the way of it now, though. Like, I mean, everyone has to be nearly more cagey than speaking freely. But he said in that when he named out all the different matchups, he says, and then we're going to win them. We're going to win all them matchups. And I just think that's wildly optimistic. I'm not sure they win the majority of them. I think if they win 2 or 3 of them, they're doing extremely well, to be quite frank. But then, like, at the other end, Tyrone are going to have boys that require marking themselves. Like, Meyler, for me, has been, and I've said this before, unbelievable man marker. Like, totally shut down Ryan McHugh in the Ulster semi-final, shut out Ryan McAnaspey in the Ulster final. So I do see either Meyler, there's a role from there either taking O'Shea or even Gavin White. I think it's more likely going to be Sean O'Shea, because that's the creative fulcrum, and that's where they might.
Would you rule out a matchup with Paddy Clifford there? As in between Meyler and Paddy Clifford, because even size profile, I think that would work in Meyler's favour.
Yeah, I mean, that might be the one to go. Like, we just don't know yet. Like, Tiernan McCann is not renowned as a man marker, and he might be given a bit of a free role. That might be the best thing for Tyrone to do.
Actually, to jump in again, I'm looking at the half-back line of Tyrone: Tiernan McCann, Kieran McGeary, Peter Hart, all ball players. Now, it's not that they're not competent, but I would think ball player first for all 3 of those. Is there anything in that where Kerry thinks there might be scores in there?
This is what I think. This is a wildly optimistic prediction here, but you can come back to me if it doesn't happen. I wouldn't be surprised to see Matthew Donnelly start at number 6 and Cathal McShane brought in to start at full forward. Somebody will have to go in the middle of all that. Yeah. Not quite sure. Maybe they might hold back Conor McKenna for the second half. But I'd be fairly surprised if Conor McKenna and Matthew Donnelly are playing very much in the middle, around the middle 8. That might leave Darren McCurry a little more having to do an awful lot by himself. But again, I think they can probably live with that for the first half. And then the second half is going to be a completely different game where they might roll out a completely different formation.
I think that'd be very interesting to see McShane and maybe Darren McCurry sparking off and everyone else just charging up and down the field. To not start Conor McKenna here, and just because of his athleticism and a few of the snippets we saw, the counter-attack move against Donegal is the most obvious one, where he turned over Michael Murphy to take on. But he is I can't think of a player more suited to Croke Park than him. To me, it would be a risk to not start him.
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to balance that as a management team. Like, do you want to start a really strong team, or do you want to hold it all back for the second half? Because these games are going on 80 minutes now. Like, they're not 70 minutes whatsoever. And like, maybe there might be a little bit of like start McKenna, because if you don't want to end up chasing the game, especially if you want to play a counter-attacking game. You don't want to end up chasing it against Kerry and then leaving space at the back then when your backs are maybe tiring.
Who in that Kerry backline, I'll just name it out for people who haven't seen it, who is physically imposing? So you're Brian O'Beogley, Jason Foley, Tom O'Sullivan, Mike Breen, Paul Murphy, Gavin White. if you're Tyrone, aren't you thinking surely we're going to wire into these lads? I mean, physically, are they able to stand up to us?
Yeah, but having said that, it's about how you use lockdown. And I mean, it's Eamon Fitzmaurice, I think, touched on it before. I talked about Gavin White. I think it was Gooch actually during lockdown. Gavin White came back as a completely different specimen. Like, you know, Mike Breen 3 years ago was on the Kerry panel. He was brought in like for a wee bit of an induction phase, whatever. Went back to his club, and I know that some of the people about his club might have been saying, God, I'm miles off that physically. I'm not there yet at all. And now he's a different being. Like, you know, yes, small in stature, maybe not 6'1", 6'2", apart from Jason Foley, obviously. Like, you know, but like at the same time, it's power and it's pace now, isn't it?
Yeah. And the minor game is about to start. Are you covering this? Will we let you go for this?
Oh, you let me go for this one.
Okay. Yeah. So it's going to be a pretty good semi-final here between Tyrone and Meath. So that's Declan Bogue previewing the All-Ireland semi-final between Tyrone and Kerry with me. And yeah, keep an eye out for the follow-up later on after the game. Cheers, Declan.
Thank you, Shane.